Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be discussing the top 10 horror movies that are widely recognized as some of the scariest films in the genre. Now, I know that fear is subjective, and what scares one person may not scare another. But these films have been known to terrify audiences and have become classics in the horror genre. So, let's jump right into it. At number 1, we have The Exorcist, from 1973. This movie follows the story of a young girl named Regan who becomes possessed by a demonic entity. Her mother, played by Ellen Burstyn, seeks the help of two priests, Father Karras and Father Merrin, to perform an exorcism and save her daughter's soul. Now, what makes The Exorcist such a terrifying movie? For one, the practical effects and makeup used to create the possessed Regan are incredibly disturbing and still hold up to this day. Linda Blair's performance as Regan is also chilling and convincing. But beyond the scares and special effects, The Exorcist also explores themes of faith, doubt, and the battle between good and evil. It's not just a mindless horror flick, there's substance and depth to the story. And let's not forget about the impact that The Exorcist had on the horror genre as a whole. It set a new standard for what horror movies could achieve and helped pave the way for future horror classics. If you haven't seen The Exorcist yet, I highly recommend it. Just make sure you're prepared for some intense and terrifying moments. Coming in at number 2 is The Shining, from 1980. Directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Jack Nicholson, The Shining tells the story of a writer named Jack Torrance who becomes the winter caretaker of the isolated Overlook Hotel, along with his wife and young son. As they settle in, strange and horrifying events begin to unfold, revealing the dark and haunted past of the hotel. So, what makes The Shining such a terrifying and unforgettable movie? For one, Nicholson's performance as Jack Torrance is legendary. His descent into madness is both disturbing and captivating to watch. The atmosphere and setting of the Overlook Hotel are also incredibly eerie and unsettling, creating a sense of dread that lingers throughout the entire film. But beyond the scares and suspense, The Shining also explores themes of isolation, addiction, and the human psyche. It's not just a mindless horror movie, there's depth and complexity to the story and characters. And let's not forget about the iconic moments and imagery that have become ingrained in pop culture. The "Here's Johnny" scene, the creepy twin girls, and the infamous maze chase sequence. If you're a horror fan and haven't seen The Shining yet, I highly recommend it. It's a classic for a reason and still holds up as one of the greatest horror movies ever made. At number 3, we have Hereditary, from 2018, directed by Ari Aster. Hereditary tells the story of a family that is haunted by sinister supernatural forces after the death of their matriarch. As strange and terrifying events begin to unfold, the family becomes increasingly isolated and paranoid, leading to a shocking and devastating conclusion. So, what makes Hereditary such a standout horror movie? For one, the performances from the cast, including Toni Collette and Alex Wolff, are absolutely incredible. Colette's portrayal of the grieving mother struggling to hold her family together is both heart-wrenching and chilling. But beyond the acting, Hereditary is a masterclass in suspense and dread. The atmosphere and tension build slowly and methodically, creating an almost unbearable sense of unease that culminates in some truly disturbing and shocking scenes. The movie also explores complex themes of grief, family dynamics, and inherited trauma, adding layers of depth and meaning to the horror. It's a movie that stays with you long after the credits roll. Overall, Hereditary is a must-watch for horror fans who appreciate a slow-burning, atmospheric horror movie that doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. It's a modern classic in the genre and definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it yet. In fourth place is The Conjuring, from 2013, directed by James Wan. The Conjuring is based on the real-life experiences of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were involved in some of the most famous cases of demonic possession in the 1970s. The movie follows the Warrens as they investigate a haunted farmhouse in Rhode Island and attempt to help a family who is being terrorized by a malevolent spirit. One of the things that makes The Conjuring so effective as a horror movie is its commitment to creating a sense of dread and unease. From the opening scene, the movie sets a creepy and foreboding tone that only intensifies as the story progresses. The tension builds slowly and steadily, until it reaches a terrifying and unforgettable climax. Another standout element of The Conjuring is its use of practical effects and practical scares. While there are certainly some moments of CGI, the movie relies mostly on practical effects like prosthetics and animatronics to create its scares, giving them a sense of weight and realism that's often lacking in modern horror movies. Of course, a horror movie is only as good as its cast, and The Conjuring delivers in that department as well. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson give standout performances as the Warrens, bringing both warmth and gravitas to their roles as investigators of the paranormal. Overall, The Conjuring is a must-watch for horror fans who appreciate a good old-fashioned ghost story with great scares and a solid cast. At number 5, we have The Babadook, from 2014, directed by Jennifer Kent. The Babadook is a psychological horror movie that tells the story of a single mother, Amelia, who is struggling to cope with the death of her husband and the difficult behavior of her young son, Samuel. When a mysterious pop-up book titled The Babadook appears in their home, Amelia and Samuel are plunged into a nightmare of terror and psychological torment. One of the things that makes The Babadook so effective as a horror movie is its exploration of complex themes like grief, trauma, and mental illness. The movie doesn't rely on cheap jump scares or gore to frighten the audience, but rather builds a sense of dread and unease through its richly drawn characters and atmospheric setting. The performance of Essie Davis as Amelia is a standout in the movie, bringing both vulnerability and strength to her role as a mother on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, the child actor who plays Samuel, Noah Wiseman, is equally impressive in his portrayal of a troubled and difficult child who is struggling to connect with his mother. The Babadook itself, the titular monster of the movie, is one of the most iconic and memorable horror movie monsters of recent years. With its distinctive top hat and clawed fingers, the Babadook is both terrifying and symbolic, representing the inner demons that haunt Amelia and her family. Overall, The Babadook is a must-watch for horror fans who appreciate a thought-provoking and deeply unsettling horror movie that explores the darkest corners of the human psyche. Let me know in the comments which of these movies scared you the most or if I missed any of your favorites. And as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.